Beare, founder and CEO of Clinials, and today the topic is unlocking value, the transformative power of diversity in clinical trials. Just to give you a feel for my background, Clinials is a digital health company. It's actually my second digital health company. The first one was a product called Wanji, which was aimed at the tracking of personal health records by consumers to empower them with their own health information. And in 2019, I was listed in the Forbes for Disrupting Health Tech. And if there's any AI questions, we're going to talk about AI tomorrow on a panel. We are already listed. Clinials is listed in the top AI trends in healthcare, specifically for the work that we're doing in clinical trials. And last year in the US, we came second with Resi in presenting our technology. But today we're focusing on diversity because it's a big problem, as you mentioned. So in the fast-paced realm of clinical trials, where innovation meets the pursuit of groundbreaking therapies, there lies a critical bottleneck that demands our attention: the challenge of patient recruitment. It's a difficult pathway with only 3%, actually 3% of oncology treatments and 10 to 12% of therapeutics and medical devices only making it to market. So, and there's a staggering 83% in total of clinical trials that fail because of patient recruitment. So these are all due to patient recruitment hurdles, and it's time to explore a strategic avenue that not only addresses this challenge, but also unlocks unprecedented value, and that is diversity. So diversity in clinical trials has long been a whispered topic, often seen by investors as an added expense and a time-consuming endeavour. Perhaps if it's a case we speak about diversity in the mindset of someone from the 1990s, when addressing diversity was a tedious, expensive, and time-consuming endeavour. The good news, I guess you understand, is that we're in the 21st century now, where global access to technology and its developments means reaching diverse groups of people is easier than it has ever been. Due to this, we can now view diversity as an opportunity rather than a hindrance. We're standing at a pivotal moment where diversity isn't merely an option, it's an imperative. It's our duty to patients, our brands, and the integrity of our scientific efforts. The perception persists that diversity initiatives are hurdles rather than opportunities. This perspective needs to be challenged and recalibrated, so diversity is seen as an essential for enhancing the robustness of research, the outcomes, and trial success. Embracing diversity isn't just about doing what's morally right, it's about what makes economic sense. By diversifying our clinical trials, we mitigate the risks associated with poor patient recruitment and unforeseen adverse events, ultimately increasing the likelihood of successful treatments coming to market. So, we've got a persistent problem on our hands. Underrepresentation is hitting hard among minority groups, women, and people with lower socioeconomic and economical backgrounds. If we take a look back, and probably current, clinical trials have mostly been a club for the white, the male, and the well-off. For all the medications that the FDA approved in 2020, the clinical trial populations consisted of 75% white people, and then the other 25% were Hispanic, Black, African American, and Asian. And out of all of those, only 30% were over 65, with an aging population. These are horrific statistics. And more than half of this data was for trials that were based in the US, even though for these treatments were planned to be global products. So what is not clear yet is how long it will be before guidance becomes an imperative, forcing sponsors to take action rather than encouraging them to adapt their approach and processes. So measuring diversity in European clinical trials is tricky due to the lack of industry standard practices for collecting racial and ethnic data. For instance, a recent analysis by PESI revealed that only 26% of clinical trials such data involving UK participants reported such data between 2007 and 2022. Of the 460 UK recruiting trials that did report on ethnicity, 49% of those reported no Asian participation and 43% reported no Black participation. So barriers such as mistrust, access issues and cultural insensitivity contribute to disparities. Comprehensive strategies are needed to address and overcome these challenges. Despite awareness, there is still a significant gap in achieving diverse participation. Diversity needs attention at various stages of the clinical trial process, including protocol design. However, protocol design guidelines may inadvertently create obstacles to achieving a truly diverse participant pool. So in the US, projections show that as early as 2045, the minorities will outnumber the majority. Considering the time it takes to get a new treatment to market, it is imperative that we reassess data-driven diversity so that it not only represents the now, but also represents the not-so-distant future. The FDA are aware of this fact and have made efforts to increase diversity in their guidelines. Regulatory agencies are aware of the diversity deficit and are increasingly emphasising the importance of diversity in clinical trials to ensure the safety and efficacy of new therapies. Lack of diversity can delay the approval process or result in post-market surveillance requirements to monitor treatment outcomes across diverse populations. In Europe, 2022, EU regulations came into force with increased emphasis on clinical trial diversification. In essence, cutting red tape, allowing sponsors to start clinical trials in more countries in the EU through a single regulatory body. They have also added the requirement that all the relevant trial materials should be available in the language of the country where the trials are being conducted. Makes sense. The change embodies the inherent value of diversity and addresses a barrier. And what you'll notice is throughout the presentation we have some features of how my company is handling diversity and communication to diversity. Localised content. In April 2022, the FDA released guidelines, as you mentioned, the guidelines for the Diversity Access Plans, DAPs, to improve enrolment of participants from unrepresented racial and ethnic populations in clinical trials. The DAPs guidance document will require sponsors to develop and submit a DAP outlining how the sponsor will ensure that their study population reflects the diversity of the US population. The revised guidance is expected to address specific requirements for DAP content, including enrolment goals and methodology, processes for requesting waivers from the DAP requirement, procedures for for submitting regular progress reports. Essentially, the DAP is an instructional step to capture the data in meeting the requirement for participants in clinical trials to match the patients who will take the approved drug. Studying the drug in different people leads to a better understanding of the drug, which is helpful to everyone. So it's great that we are having more conversations and guidance on how to capture this. This regulatory shift highlights both ethical and practical implications and is a reaction to the lack of diversity. The lack of diversity in clinical trials often mirrors broader disparities in healthcare access and quality. Structural barriers such as geography, location, socioeconomic status, language proficiency, and cultural differences can limit participation among marginalised communities. Cultural nuances wield considerable influence over healthcare attitudes and research participation. Protocols devoid of cultural sensitivity risk alienating potential participants, while overlooking cultural norms and languages can inadvertently exclude diverse backgrounds. It's imperative that we adopt cultural competent approaches to increase diverse beliefs and values effectively. I recently went to an oncology conference. It was actually late last year, and the data represented was only males. This was not a cancer related to men, and I was horrified. Women's underrepresentation in certain trials raises serious ethical concerns. These disparities are often rooted in historical biases which compromise the findings. As in this case study, we must take proactive measures to ensure the inclusion of women, thus advancing our scientific comprehension and ensuring equitable healthcare outcomes. Socioeconomic status significantly impacts potential patient engagement in clinical trials. Financial constraints and lack of insurance pose formidable barriers, hindering access for many. To address this, collaborative efforts are essential to guarantee equitable access to trials, regardless of financial circumstances. We cannot overlook additional hurdles, such as language barriers, lack of awareness, and access issues, all of which demanded urgent attention and collective action. Lower educational attainment correlates with limited health literacy, presenting a significant challenge. How do we communicate to that population? FDA guidelines recommend educational initiatives which hold the key to empowering informed decision-making among diverse populations. Individuals facing economic disadvantages often encounter limitations in health literacy, further exacerbating underrepresentation and impacting recruitment goals. So diversity in clinical trials is a cornerstone of responsible research, vital for understanding demographic variations in drug response and ensuring the safety and effectiveness of medical interventions. When trials lack diversity, as we have seen, findings may not reflect real-world outcomes, leading to disparities in healthcare. Comprehensive representation is crucial to avoid overlooking critical safety issues or adverse reactions specific to certain demographic groups. Incorporating diverse demographics is vital to mitigate these health disparities. Diversity data encompasses crucial factors such as sex, gender, age, identity, socioeconomic status, disability, and more. Excluding these populations from clinical research raises ethical concerns regarding fairness, justice, and responsibility, ultimately depriving underrepresented groups of access to potential life-saving treatments and interventions. Think back to the FDA, their recommendation to match the diverse population in your studies. So, if there's any investors in the room, listen closely. Beyond the moral imperative, embrace diversity in clinical trials. It presents a compelling economic case. Imagine a scenario where trials are completed faster and market entry is accelerated. This isn't just a theoretical advantage, it's a tangible promise backed by a broader participant base that expedites the accumulation of valuable data. The combination of ethical responsibility and economic advantage makes diverse clinical trials an attractive investment opportunity for those seeking both impact and profitability. It's a dual win, aligning with ethical principles while offering substantial economic benefits. By broadening the pool of trial participants, we expand the consumer base, enhancing drug commercialisation opportunities, and early identification of population-specific responses streamlines drug development and reducing costs. There is a cost to achieving diversity, such as the cost of foreign language, staff, translated material and marketing, but these costs are offset by the savings of earlier trial completion. Swift trial completion and increased market potential directly correlate with more attractive investments. It's a proposition that resonates with investors seeking not just returns, but rapid strategic returns. Let's take a look at different strategies to increase diversity. Clinical trials often rely on databases that are site-based, leading to restricted patient pools and costly delays. A paradigm shift is needed, expanding the search beyond these databases to enlarge the overall patient pool. It isn't just about efficiency, it's about redefining the very landscape of clinical trial dynamics. Cost-effective strategies for participant engagement take centre stage, emphasising efficiency for quicker trials and accelerated market access. We're reshaping the very architecture of clinical trial efficiency, and with the help of AI, making it a magnet for investor interest. In the journey from the lab to the market, communication plays a pivotal role. Complex medical details often hinder recruitment efforts, impacting trial timelines and delaying progress. Streamlined communication isn't just a tactical move, it's a strategic choice to accelerate participant understanding and facilitate faster trials. While this has been a costly and timely task in the past, by adopting emerging technologies such as digital health tools and AI, we can augment efficiencies in this process, making them far more effective and feasible. Simplifying the pre-screening process isn't just about admin ease. It's about attracting a more intellectually diverse participant pool. The strategic move has direct economic repercussions. Improved pre-screening submissions lead to higher quality participant data and increased patient retention. The result? An accelerated trial timeline, which brings products to save trials, which brings the potential to save trials that are unable to reach the recruitment goals. Here's an example of the recent FDA Diversity Access Plan implemented. The dots connect seamlessly. Participant engagement strategies directly contribute to increased patient recruitment efficiency, mitigated risk, and consequently faster market entry. And consequently for investors seeking not just returns, but a shorter time to market, this is an economic advantage that resonates. So my recommendations for advancing diversity in clinical trials encompasses the establishment of diversity benchmarks and to set clear goals, incentivising inclusive recruitment practices to ensure representation, fostering collaboration between stakeholders to share resources and insights, and implementing continuous evaluation and adaptation strategies to address evolving needs and challenges. The exposure to new technologies such as generative AI has subsequently led companies to a pathway that saves their money and expedites their trial while addressing diversity challenges. The need for diverse data has forced companies to look beyond the way that they have always been doing things. To illustrate, minorities constitute approximately 10% of the EU population, whereas in Australia, they represent 27.6%. If you haven't noticed, I'm from Australia. So by selecting a different locale, you could potentially increase your likelihood of recruiting diverse participants by over 170%. That said, by exploring this option, you would also find that some companies like Australia offer competitive tax incentives for research and development. Innovative CROs and sponsors are already adopting new practices and AI technologies. The economic advantages of this forward-thinking strategy are becoming the new norm, as the old way of doing things has proven to be inefficient. In closing, diversity in clinical trials stands as both a moral imperative and a strategic economic advantage. Through proactive strategies aimed at enhancing inclusivity, we not only generate research outcomes that benefit diverse populations, but also unlock significant economic benefits for pharma companies and the healthcare industry at large. Therefore, I extend an invitation to investors, sponsors and CROs to recognise the transformative power of diversity in clinical trials. It's not merely a scientific endeavour, it's a strategic move that demands action at the highest levels. Let's embed diversity strategies at the board, executive and advisory levels, recognising the immense potential they hold. Faster trials, quicker market access and increased returns. So, to investors and CROs alike, the time for action is now. Let's collectively shape a future where diversity isn't just a goal, but a cornerstone of medical progress, unlocking unparalleled value in the journey from the lab to the market. Thank you.